You probably don't know this, but I'm kind of a big deal on local sports radio in San Diego. They had me on because I covered for 15 years the saga of the Chargers threatening to leave San Diego and become an LA team. And it was a little weird for them. It was a strange situation. And they wanted me on the radio to talk and explain the land use and the public policy and the politics. And they always call, hey, call the nerd. We need to understand this. And I would come on and made me a minor celebrity among some of those sports bros. It was kind of fun. My dad has never been so proud. One of the weird things, though, is that the Chargers went to Los Angeles and they were met with outright hostility, aggression, and some indifference at best. And what was really interesting about it is it revealed that the Chargers and the NFL were really a reality show, and that the Chargers were just a character within that reality show called the Chargers. And drove home that the media, or that the NFL had become this kind of giant media empire, a storytelling machine, truly. It creates such amazing who gets to be in the NFL. It creates stories about who gets to be cheerleaders. It creates stories 365 days a year, not based on the games necessarily. The games are just one part of that. Right as I started preparing this talk, a book came out, Mark Leibovich's book, and it really helped me fill in some gaps, so thanks, Mark. But the interesting thing he brought up is that some of these stadiums have become true sort of recording studios, giant sound studios, where the people who are attending those games are really just extras in this long production, this highlight of the year. Again, there's no off-season in the NFL. The story continues all year long. They created their own TV news, cable news network just to follow the reality show that they were creating, to generate drama that was so interesting that you would want to plug in every single day. And it gets the regular reporters really confused, because if the NFL Network, as this was created, was called, reported on something but didn't give credit to the actual reporter who had first reported it, that reporter would get upset. But think about how bananas that is, right? This is the entity that controls the information, not giving credit to the reporter who found the information out later. It was a very strange situation. But some of these stories get out of control, and they actually consume the broader reality, the broader world. And then they seem like distractions, like bad things, but they know, the owners of the NFL know, that if you're captivated by the stories that they're creating, the reality that they're creating, boy, they win. But they manufactured three stories that were weird, that have gotten out of control, that are now threatening the very basis of this entity. Those three stories start with the one that I followed, the story that they sold all of these municipalities, that you must build them their palaces, you must build them their stadiums, you must pay for them. Well, that got a little out of hand. It was kind of a bubble in the market, and now those stadiums have gotten so expensive that places like San Diego simply can't afford them. We could build an $800 million stadium that would be better than this one in Denver, but they want this one in Vegas. $3 billion. $3 billion. The cities around the country are not going to be able to afford this. But that's okay. They can handle this crisis. They can handle this crisis by lowering their expectations. NFL owners do not lower their expectations well, but they can. The other crisis they set in motion was American exceptionalism. After 9/11, they decided to embrace jingoism and patriotism. They thought they could do it hollowly. They thought they could do it without the actual principles behind it. At some point, that was going to catch up to them when somebody realized that the core of American exceptionalism is actually free speech and free thought, and that they would grasp on that and they would use that to make their own point. And now, but the NFL can handle that one. The NFL can handle this issue. Essential crisis, the story that they manufactured was the actual game itself. The game that they set in motion that started with a brute force clashing and now has moved on to this air war. It causes people to collide all the time, and inside their heads, their brains rack against their skulls, and it creates a protein that creates depression and dementia and leads to awful suicide. It's a weird story that they manufactured, that they put in motion, and it's one of the three that they have no control over and is now threatening them. The NFL for me was something I could bond with people about that I didn't know. I met a guy on a fishing boat not too long ago, and I said, hey, you got a Miami Dolphins shirt on. How about those Dolphins? He said, I don't watch the Dolphins. I don't like the NFL anymore. And by looking at him, I knew what he was talking about. But it wasn't because of the brain injuries, and it wasn't because of the extortions of local municipalities that he wasn't watching the NFL, but it could have been.